Before we jump into today's episode, I am so excited to be able to tell you that my debut book, Optimal You, Supercharge Your Energy, Strengthen Your Immunity, is now published. Optimal You is a groundbreaking guide uncovering the 8 pillars of health for supercharged energy and strengthened immunity to optimize your health and extend your health span. Delve into evidence-based strategies to optimize nutrition, balance your lifestyle, reduce toxin exposure, and address root causes of health imbalances. It includes a 14-step anti-inflammatory nutrition blueprint to supercharge your mitochondria and fortify your immune system. Plus, you get my 4 lifestyle S's: sleep, stress, strength, and social, that form the foundation of optimal well-being. On top of all that, when you buy the book, you get access to a special area on the website that gives you all the resources, plus recipes and guides that we talk about within the book. You can empower yourself with practical tools and insights to embark on a transformative journey towards Optimal You. Head over to optimalyoubook.com to get your copy now, or you can get your copy from Amazon worldwide or your local bookstore. When you've got your copy, don't forget to share on social media, tag me in it at good_health, GOODE, and use the hashtag OptimalYouBook. I can't wait to see what you think of the book, and I really hope that it brings you lots of health and wellness. Now let's head to today's episode.
Welcome to the Good Health Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Good, a certified functional medicine practitioner, registered nutritionist, and author. In this podcast, we delve into the world of energy and immune health and wellness with positivity, from optimal health and energy to stress and burnout, right through to immune conditions such as thyroid and autoimmune disease. We deep dive into functional medicine, nutritional medicine, and lifestyle medicine, as well as the personal stories of our amazing guests, from Olympians to famous faces and guest experts from all different parts of the health and wellness world. It's time to stop letting your health hold you back and become the optimal version of you. Don't forget to come and join the conversation on Instagram at good_health, that's GOODE, or visit the website nicolegoodhealth.com to find out more.
Welcome to the Good Health Podcast. I'm Nicole Good, certified functional medicine practitioner and registered nutritional therapist. And today we're diving deep into a topic that could be the missing piece in your thyroid health puzzle: T4-to-T3 conversion. If you've ever been told that your thyroid labs are normal, but you still feel exhausted, sluggish, or foggy, this episode is for you. Did you know that nearly 90% of the thyroid hormone your body produces is inactive? That's right, your thyroid mainly releases T4, which has little direct effect on your metabolism, brain function, or energy levels. The real powerhouse is T3, the active form of thyroid hormones that fuel every cell in your body. But here's the catch. Your body has to convert T4 into T3, and this process doesn't always go smoothly. Many people, especially those struggling with fatigue, weight gain, brain fog, hair loss, or even depression, have poor thyroid hormone conversion, meaning their bodies aren't making enough T3. And without enough T3, even if your TSH, so that thyroid stimulating hormone, and T4 levels look normal on a standard blood test, you can still experience all the classic symptoms of hypothyroidism. In this episode, we're going beyond the surface level thyroid discussions, and we're unpacking how your body converts T4 into T3 and why this process is critical for metabolism, brain function, and energy, the biggest roadblocks that block this conversion, and actionable strategies to help you improve your thyroid hormone conversion and reclaim your energy, focus, and well-being. This episode is for you if you've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, or if you're on thyroid medication but still feeling unwell, or if you suspect a sluggish thyroid but haven't been formally diagnosed. This episode will help you to connect the dots. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why simply taking thyroid medication isn't always enough, and you'll have a clear plan for optimizing your body's ability to produce and utilize T3 effectively. So grab a notebook and pen, because we're about to get into the functional medicine approach to thyroid conversion. Now that we've set the stage for why T4 to T3 conversion is so important, let's take a step back and break down exactly how thyroid hormone works in the body, because understanding this process is key to recognizing where things can go wrong, and more importantly, how we can fix them. So let's have a quick refresher and look at the thyroid hormone pathway. Your thyroid doesn't work in isolation. It's part of a larger communication network between your brain, your thyroid, your liver, your gut, and cells. So let's break it down step by step. Step 1, the brain's role. Everything starts in the hypothalamus, a small but powerful region of the brain that constantly monitors your body's energy needs, When it detects that you need more thyroid hormone, it's going to stimulate that pituitary gland, another of the brain structures, to release thyroid-stimulating hormone. That's the TSH. TSH acts like a messenger, so it travels through your bloodstream to the thyroid gland, telling it to produce and release the thyroid hormones, the T4-to-T3. If your TSH levels are high, it means your brain is screaming at the thyroid to work harder because it's sensing low thyroid hormone levels. If TSH is low, it means the brain is satisfied with the thyroid hormone production. Step 2, the thyroid produces the T4 and the T3. So once stimulated by that TSH, your thyroid gland is going to release the two main hormones. The T4 is the inactive storage form of thyroid hormone, and it makes up about 90% of what your thyroid produces. The T3 is the active form of the thyroid hormone that is responsible for increasing metabolism, energy production, and overall cellular function. However, only 10% of what the thyroid produces is T3. The rest has to be converted from the 90% T4 in other parts of the body. Most conventional thyroid treatments focus on replacing T4. So, for example, that levothyroxine, which is the synthetic form of T4. This helps to bring TSH levels back to normal because the brain detects there's more T4 in circulation. But here's the catch. TSH only reflects what's happening at the brain thyroid level. It doesn't tell us if your body is actually using thyroid hormone properly. So if you have issues with T4 to T3 conversion or T3 uptake into the cells, you can still have all the symptoms of hypothyroidism despite being on the medication. The medication is just looking at those levels of TSH and T4. What we need to also focus on is the levels of T4 to T3 and the level of T3 getting up into the cells in your body. This is where functional medicine goes deeper. We don't just focus on the TSH. We look at what's happening after the thyroid hormones are released, including their conversion, transport, and absorption into cells to get a full picture. Now that we understand how thyroid hormones are made, let's look at how T4 is converted into T3. So T4 and T3 conversion happens primarily in the liver, so about 60% in the liver. This is where the majority of T4 is transformed into T3 with the help of enzymes called deiodinases, which remove an iodine atom from T4 to create T3. It also happens in the gut, so around 20% in the gut, and your gut bacteria play a crucial role in that thyroid hormone activation. If you've got poor gut health, your ability to convert T4 into T3 may be compromised. And then the remaining part of that happens in the peripheral tissues, so your muscles and your fat cells. That's where the remaining T4 to T3 conversion happens in various tissues throughout the body. So we can't just look at the thyroid. We need to look at the thyroid, we need to look at the brain, we need to look at the liver, we need to look at the gut, and we also need to look at how your muscles are working. The T4 to T3 conversion process isn't automatic. It's influenced by various factors that can either enhance or block the process. So let's take a look at some of the common roadblocks to this conversion. So the first is inflammation. Chronic inflammation from infections or to immune conditions, bearing in mind 90% of hypothyroid conditions are Hashimoto's and autoimmune in nature, that can be having an impact. Or even just poor diet is going to inhibit the deiodinase enzymes that convert T4 to T3, and that's going to lead to that low active thyroid hormone levels. So inflammation and that undercurrent of autoimmunity is going to play a big role here. Secondly, we've got nutrient deficiencies. So the conversion of T4 to T3 relies on key nutrients such as selenium, zinc, iodine, iron, and vitamin D. If you're deficient in those, your thyroid function will suffer. Number 3, chronic stress and cortisol imbalance. So now we need to also be looking at the adrenals. High cortisol levels from prolonged stress push your body into survival mode, slowing down T3 production while increasing reverse T3, which is an inactive form of T3 that blocks T3 from doing its job. Number 4, we need to look at the liver and the gut dysfunction. So since the liver and the gut handle most of that conversion process, conditions like fatty liver, gut dysbiosis, leaky gut can all reduce T3 levels by blocking the conversion process. Number 5, we've got to look at toxin exposure and heavy metals. Environmental toxins such as endocrine disruptors like pesticides, plastics, and heavy metals can interfere with thyroid hormone metabolism. And then number 6, that underlying autoimmune disease. So in the case of the thyroid, that Hashimoto's or the Graves'. So as well as the inflammatory aspect of this, many thyroid issues are autoimmune in nature, meaning that your body's immune system is not running as effectively as it should be. Hashimoto's thyroiditis is the most common cause of hypothyroidism. So as well as creating that chronic inflammation, it's impairing that thyroid hormone conversion. What is the functional medicine approach to these thyroid conversion issues? Instead of just focusing on TSH and T4 replacement, a functional medicine approach also asks, and this doesn't mean that your medication isn't important, it means that we need to also look at these other things. Are you actually producing enough T3? Is T3 getting into your cells effectively? And what factors might be blocking your thyroid hormone conversion? So by taking a root cause approach, we can address these conversion bottlenecks and improve thyroid function and help you to restore that energy, metabolism, and well-being. So now that we've laid the groundwork for how the thyroid hormones work and where the T4 to T3 conversion happens, let's dig deeper into some of these key roadblocks that interfere with this process. These aren't just minor issues, they're major disruptors that can keep you feeling fatigued, foggy, and stuck in a cycle of low thyroid function, even if your TSH looks normal on those lab tests. So if you've ever wondered why your thyroid labs come back normal, but you still feel exhausted, sluggish, or have brain fog, the answer often lies in these conversion bottlenecks and the things that prevent your body from effectively converting T4 into that active T3 hormone. These roadblocks are often overlooked in conventional medicine, which focuses primarily on that TSH to T4. But let's have a look at some of the functional medicine approach and dig a little bit deeper into some of these root causes. Let's start with the chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is one of the most powerful inhibitors to T4 to T3 conversion. And here's why. When the body is in an inflamed state, it sees this as a sign of stress or infection. As a protective mechanism, it reduces your metabolism because in survival terms, the body prioritizes conserving energy over thriving. One of the key ways that inflammation is going to disrupt that thyroid function is by interfering with that enzyme, that deiodinase, which is responsible for the conversion of T4 to T3. But there are 3 types of deiodinase enzymes, and 2 of them, D1 and D2, help activate T3, but inflammation actually decreases that D1 activity, meaning that less T3 is produced. At the same time, inflammation increases the activity of deiodinase type 3, D3, which converts T4 into something called reverse T3, or you might see this on your labs as RT3. Now, reverse T3 is basically a metabolic brake. So if you imagine T3 is like putting your foot on the accelerator, RT3 is like putting your foot on the brake. It looks like T3, but it doesn't have the same effect in the body. It actually competes with T3 at receptor sites, preventing active T3 from getting into your cells. So the inflammation is halting that production of D1, which means that less T3 is produced. And then it's also increasing the activity of D3, which increases the levels of RT3, which is preventing the active T3 from getting into your cells because it competes at the same receptor sites. And this is why in functional medicine, we don't just look at TSH because there is so much more going on in thyroid conditions. So some of the common triggers of this chronic inflammation are things like gut dysbiosis or intestinal permeability, because of that 70% of your immune system is in the gut. So an imbalanced microbiome can create chronic inflammation. Then we have that autoimmunity, the underlying autoimmune picture, particularly because so many hypothyroid cases are Hashimoto's, even if people haven't been told. And then we've got chronic infections, so things like Epstein-Barr virus or Lyme disease, these can all trigger an ongoing immune response, even if they're at low-lying levels. And then we have environmental toxins. So things like mold, heavy metals, pesticides, those endocrine-disrupting chemicals like BPA and phthalates, all activate those inflammatory pathways. In the functional medicine approach, the goal isn't just to suppress symptoms, it's to address the root causes of the inflammation, whether that's looking at gut health, immune regulation, detoxification, or chronic infections. Another key way that chronic inflammation disrupts thyroid function is through cytokine activation. So cytokines are signaling molecules released by the immune system in response to infection, injury, or chronic stress. And when inflammation becomes persistent, cytokines like TNF-alpha, so tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin-6, IL-6, or interleukin-1 beta, IL-1B, can interfere with thyroid hormone function at a cellular level. So these inflammatory cytokines don't just impact thyroid hormone production, they actually disrupt thyroid hormone signaling, meaning that even if you have enough T3 circulating in your body, your cells may not be able to actually use it effectively. And this happens because that chronic inflammation reduces the sensitivity of thyroid receptors, making it harder for T3 to bind and activate metabolism. Essentially, your cells are becoming resistant to thyroid hormones, much like insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes. And this can leave you experiencing those classic hypothyroid symptoms, the fatigue, the brain fog, the weight gain, the hair loss, despite having those normal lab results. So reducing chronic inflammation through targeted anti-inflammatory strategies, such as optimizing gut health, balancing the immune function, lowering oxidative stress, is all crucial for restoring proper thyroid hormone signaling and that overall metabolic health. Another major reason for poor T4-to-T3 conversion is nutrient deficiencies. We need certain cofactors, so these nutrients that help enzymes to do their job, in order for this process to happen efficiently. Without them, your body simply can't produce or activate the thyroid hormones properly. So let's go through some of those key nutrients that we mentioned earlier that play a role in thyroid hormone conversion. So first we have selenium. This is probably the most important nutrient for thyroid function. Selenium is essential for the deiodinase enzymes that activate T3. It also helps to lower thyroid antibodies in people with Hashimoto's. And the best sources really include Brazil nuts. And just 1 or 2 of those a day can help to meet your needs. You'll also get selenium in wild-caught fish and eggs. Zinc is another one that is crucial for both thyroid function and immune regulation. It supports the deiodinase enzymes that convert T4 to T3 and also helps thyroid receptors function properly. Good sources of zinc include oysters, beef, and pumpkin seeds. Then we've got iron. Iron is required for thyroid peroxidase, or TPO, which is the enzyme that helps your thyroid to produce T4. Low iron can also reduce oxygen transport, so leads to fatigue anyway. You can get enough iron from grass-fed red meat, from liver, and from lentils, but if you're plant-based, make sure you pair it with vitamin C for better absorption. And then we've got vitamin D. So vitamin D is the master immune regulator. It plays a key role in reducing autoimmunity and inflammation, and that directly impacts that thyroid function, as we've already seen. The best sources are getting this from sun. We can get some from fatty fish, and it can be difficult to get enough from the diet, especially if we live in a country where we're not getting enough sunshine. Therefore, supplementation does come into this, and an omega-3 supplement can really help. In functional medicine, though, we don't just assume that nutrient levels are fine or assume that they are out of balance. We test for them. Functional lab testing helps us to pinpoint deficiencies and correct them through diet or through targeted supplementation at the right dose. Stress is also one of the most overlooked factors of thyroid dysfunction. When we're under chronic stress, our body releases cortisol, which directly impacts thyroid function in multiple ways. First, high cortisol levels increase that reverse T3, which we talked about earlier, that blocks the active T3 from getting into your cells. So chronic stress also reduces T3 receptor sensitivity. And this means that even if you've got enough T3, your cells might not be able to use it efficiently. So if we want to look at how stress is maybe impacting your thyroid, we want to look at that reverse T3 level. We also want to look at your adrenal tests, and then we can make sure that you have got enough of it and that your cells are actually able to take T3 up. Another issue is that chronic stress leads to HPA axis dysfunctions. This is where we want to look at these adrenal tests. And that disrupts the communication between the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal glands. And since the thyroid works in close connection with this system, stress can actually lead to a sluggish thyroid response. So the first step here is to actually measure those cortisol patterns. This can be done through a saliva test. So the next step is then to regulate stress through nervous system support. And that's things like mindfulness, breath work, and HRV training, which can really help to rebalance those cortisol levels. But by testing, we can see exactly where your cortisol levels are at. Some people will be in a high cortisol pattern, some people will be in a low cortisol pattern. And then we have to look at some of the other parts of the body. And this is where the conversions take place. A lot of people just don't realize that 60% of T4 is converted into T3 in the liver and 20% happens in the gut. And this is why a whole body approach is so important. You cannot just look at the thyroid to work on thyroid health. We've already hit on the brain, the thyroid, the adrenals, the liver, the gut. All of these need to be considered. So if your liver and your gut aren't functioning optimally, your thyroid function will suffer. The liver is responsible for producing those deiodinase enzymes that activate the T3. And it's also helping to clear out that excess reverse T3. So if your liver function is sluggish, you may end up with a high RT3 and low active T3. Signs that your liver may be sluggish are things like fatigue, a sluggish metabolism, bloating, high liver enzymes on blood work, or poor detoxification, which we can see in things like sensitivity to alcohol, to caffeine, or to chemicals. A healthy gut is also essential for multiple steps in the thyroid hormone pathway, including T3 activation, immune regulation, and nutrient absorption. So first, around 20% of that active T3 is being produced in the gut. The microbiome helps to convert inactive thyroid hormone precursors into the metabolically active form of T3. So if your gut bacteria are imbalanced, whether that's due to dysbiosis, infections, or just low microbial diversity, this conversion process is impaired, which can leave you with lower levels of the hormone that actually drives metabolism. The gut also plays a key role in that immune system regulation, which is particularly relevant given that autoimmune thyroid diseases like Hashimoto's and Graves' are closely linked to gut dysfunction. Intestinal permeability, commonly referred to as leaky gut, can also trigger that immune dysregulation, leading to increased inflammation and thyroid autoantibodies. And this is why gut health interventions, like addressing food intolerances, reducing gut inflammation, and rebalancing the microbiome, are critical for anyone with thyroid issues. Another important factor is nutrient absorption. Key thyroid supporting minerals, so that zinc, the selenium, the iron, they're absorbed in the gut. So if you have conditions like SIBO, that's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, IBS, or chronic bloating, your ability to absorb these nutrients may be compromised. And this can further impact that thyroid hormone production, conversion, and receptor sensitivity. So how do you know if your gut is affecting your thyroid? Some of the key signs: digestive issues like bloating, IBS symptoms, or frequent infections. Low T3 levels, despite having normal TSH levels, that can also indicate poor conversion linked to that gut. Food sensitivities, particularly to gluten, which can trigger that inflammation and worsen that thyroid autoimmunity. And also if you're experiencing brain fog. So we know there's a very, very distinct link between the gut and the brain. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms, improving gut health should be a key part of your thyroid healing strategy. Optimizing the digestion, balancing the microbiome, ensuring that you're absorbing nutrients properly can all make a huge difference in supporting optimal thyroid function and optimal metabolic health. And then that liver, we've got to support that liver with detoxification. We can do that through cruciferous vegetables, bitter greens, and also some compounds like NAC. We can reduce the toxin exposure to support the liver as well, switching to organic foods, non-toxic products. And then also to help the liver, addressing those gut imbalances. So that is also going to support the liver. To summarize, the biggest disruptors to T4-to-T3 conversion are inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, chronic stress, liver dysfunction, and gut imbalances. And each of these play a factor in blocking active thyroid hormone from doing its job. So as we wrap up today's episode, let's do a quick recap. Even if your TSH level and your T4 levels look normal on standard thyroid testing, poor T4 to T3 conversion can still leave you with hypothyroid symptoms. Things like fatigue, brain fog, weight gain, hair thinning, these aren't just in your head. They're not something that you should have to push through, and they are not something that should be ignored. The key is to dig deeper and identify what is blocking your thyroid hormone from working efficiently at the cellular level. I encourage you to take a really critical look at your diet, your stress levels, your gut health, as these are some of the biggest influencers of that thyroid hormone conversion. Are you getting enough of those important nutrients, the selenium, the zinc, the iron? Are you managing stress in a way that supports that adrenal thyroid balance? What are you doing about your gut? Do you know what's going on in your gut? Do you need to have a gut test done? All of these things can help to work on your thyroid. If you're struggling with low energy, stubborn weight gain, or other thyroid-related symptoms, it's important you go beyond just that TSH testing. Additional tests can provide a much clearer picture of what's really happening. So we look at things in functional medicine, and when I'm working with all my thyroid patients, we look at things like free T3, free T4, reverse T3, thyroid antibodies to assess that autoimmune involvement. We can look at nutrient panels, so looking at the selenium, the zinc, the iron, the vitamin D levels. We do comprehensive gut health testing to look at that microbiome, to look at whether there's any overgrowth in the gut, to look at how your nutrient uptake is, and to test for anything like SIBO. We can also look at those inflammatory markers like CRP and homocysteine, which can indicate chronic infections. And we can also look at those low viral loads and do some viral testing. If this episode resonated with you and you're looking for practical steps, I've put together a free thyroid conversion optimization guide, which you can download for free in the show notes below this episode. You'll find key strategies to support your thyroid naturally. And if you want personalized support, I offer thyroid consultations to help you get to the root cause of your symptoms. And we create a tailored plan to optimize your thyroid function. We also have our ever popular 3-month thyroid program, We'll drop the details of that in the show notes below as well. Before you go, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss future deep dives into functional medicine, energy, and the thyroid. If you found this episode valuable, share it with a friend who might benefit, and tag me on social media with your biggest takeaway. I love hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on the Good Health Podcast.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Good Health Podcast. Do share the episode with anyone you think it may benefit, and help us to spread the word on all things health and wellness by rating, liking, or subscribing to the podcast. If you want more, you can listen to more episodes on your favourite podcast app, or sign up to my newsletter for my favourite tips, tricks, health advice, brands, recipes, and more at nicolegoodhealth.com/newsletter. Have a lovely week. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Good Health Podcast.